Hey, so this is my trade recap from May 31st, 2024, Friday, last day of the month. As you can see, this is the SPY, the S&P 500. Had a pretty crazy price action day. Everything was pretty much in a horseshoe. I actually had predicted this to some extent. I don't think it was going to be this significant, but I had a feeling it was going to have this similar price action. Um, this was from a chat from with one of my mentors and things like that after one of our weekly webinars and all that. This is my response to when he was asking, what our thoughts were for the next day, or what our if we had been studying and what our game plan was. And I had actually made a pretty solid trade Thursday night into the close. Um, Aftermarket got an alert for NVOS. It had some breaking news, and it actually went from 50 cents all the way up to 92 cents. Actually, no, it went from 45 cents up to 92 cents. And I happened to be paying attention when the alert came out, and I got in at 50 cents and I got out at 88 cents for a pretty solid win going into the afternoon. Automatically was on my watch list. Because usually when you have breaking news like that after market, it usually takes till the next day or two for the rest of the public to kind of catch on or to jump in. And of course, pre-market, it showed up on everybody's scanners as one of the top percent movers. Um, and then also Lucy, Lucy, that had been one of the top percent gainers throughout the week, and it had closed pretty strong. It had that VWAP hold high of day pattern going into the close, and so that was automatically on my watch list. Same with FFIE. That had been another one of the top percent gainers from the last couple weeks, and that had closed pretty strong too. So I had a feeling all three of those were going to have price action on Friday, which all three actually ended up having pretty significant price actions that you can make money off of. Um, and then my biggest prediction was the how the market was going to open. Seeing how that market had been red for most of the day and had a pretty strong dip into the close, or I should say, bounce into the close, going to green. I had a feeling that it could at least gap up, but it was going to be, what they call a weak open red to green, that it would most likely dip red before it would bounce green again at the open. And if we take a look here, let's go into a better screen more here. We can see, so this is the S&P 500. And you see the close on Thursday. If you watch my last video, I had my closing strategy kind of fumble on me, because you see that about the last three candles of the market, the last 15 minutes, big red, then bounced green, and we actually got in at the bottom here at the red one, went from red to green, and then the last 10 seconds, all that volume kicked into is selling, and it turned that candle red. Just at the same time, I was trying to sell my position out for a pretty sizable profit, and so I ended up not getting closed out. So my position was actually being held over until um, the next day. And you can see, it kind of chopped in the aftermarket, and then pre-market opened up. It bounced up, just kind of up and down. There wasn't any really big news coming in. And then at the open, it actually had gapped up from the closing price of yesterday. But you see the first candles were red, and you see the big volume red. And so I held position because not only was it big volume red, but it was wicked. There wasn't any real set direction on it. It was wicked. So you always want to wait for that next candle. And of course, the next candle was green, and it was substantial green. It was a fully engulfing candle. It wasn't any wicks to it at all. Even though it had drop off in volume, that always happens after your first opening candle. You get everybody all excited, either buying in positions or selling off positions, selling that gap. You know, you know, you always want to sell the gap, especially if you're up high. But I had a better feeling that it was going to be a little bit better, or at least recover some from what we missed out on at the close yesterday. What caused me to exit? You see this third candle here. There's the smaller green candle. Um, it was not only was it a smaller green candle, but smaller volume, and it actually had a top wick on it, which told me that things could be rolling over. So I actually exited my position. Um, Actually, and with a pretty good, profit as well. Here, I'll show you guys. Um, so this is what I bought in at for my close. I had bought in for the 523 calls, at the $1.23 mark. And you can see I bought the last 10 minutes of the close for the market closed on us. My market closes here at 2 p.m. And then I ended up selling that one um, here within right at the top of that green candle that um, for 179. So we still had a pretty solid profit there. We had on that one, and then you can see that right after I exited, it pulled back pretty hard. I uh, I wasn't sure if that was going to be a false breakdown or not. I actually got it back in position. Right here, you see this third green candle going in right at the. For me, it was 8 o'clock, but 10 o'clock Eastern, thinking that it could actually bounce again. The rest of the market was kind of choppy and was looking like it may have recovered before it dipped down, and so my position that I got into actually failed, and because I got into the calls again. I got into the 525 calls, thinking it would at least reclaim, the near the high of that day. To that point, that was my goal, was for it to hit 525, 526. But once I saw that it was actually breaking down, I had a feeling it was going to be more of a trend down, at least for the morning session. And we see that's exactly what happened. So once I exited my failed call right here at the 8 o'clock mark, actually let's go here. It might be a little bit easier. So this is where I try to get right at the 8 o'clock mark. There's always news. I'm in the Mountain Time Zone, so 8 o'clock is 10 o'clock Eastern. And right here at the 8 o'clock mark with news, I thought I had a chance to bounce, at least recover, back to, the 525 mark or somewhere in there. Um, and it quickly failed. That big red engulfing red right there going down, and then the follow up, I end up exiting my position somewhere right in here. It was evident that was a failed breakdown or a failed breakup, and I turned around and got into the puts. I got into the uh, actually, I think, yeah, right in here. Yeah, I got into like the 520. Let's take a look, see which puts I got into. So I got into the 520 puts. You see, I got into 813. Um, it was all for value. It's part of why I like trading on Fridays. All your options, a lot of times they're expiring on that day for most part across the board. So you actually get some better premium prices on Fridays. So I got in for $42 on this one, and I actually wrote it down quite a bit. Um, I held it for about a half hour or so, and I sold it for 83. I just wasn't convinced it was going to keep going down. It has some consolidation around the 845 mark, and it's hard not to pass up a 100% winner. So I got out and took my profits on that one. Because we can take a look at the map here, or the graph. I mean, so 845 is right in here. When I saw this, because what made me exit that was you see the green. You saw a green candle with a bottom wick, red engulfing, top wick more or less shooting star, whatever you want to call it. Then with this green here, the green doji candle, I had a feeling that right in here in transition here, that things could be shifting, could be consolidating. And for the initial move, you saw the next candle was a fairly larger green, and you saw that it was still choppy and possibly even starting uptrend. So my exit was actually warranted right in here, that the massive drop off was dying off. So that's one you really want to think about, your price action and volume. Where you start seeing your price action go from big, 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 weak, bottom wicking, weak, bottom wicking, kind of solid but weak, and then you start getting your weaker candles. That means your move could be over, again, close to being over. So it's always safer to take profits instead of holding and hoping, or waiting for a bounce. Because this, you saw after my exit here, you see this candle here, it's a larger candle. Well, if the next candle would have been green too, this could have been a substantial bounce, as we see, started happening here when it finally hit the rock bottom, around the 1030 mark, going into power hour, you saw that it same thing. You still had red, 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 red. Oh, we had a green with a bottom wick pointing different direction. Followed up by a really weak red, and we started getting some green. Another bottom wick, weak green, weak red. So you see that in here that the sellers couldn't take over anymore. You had complete transition. You went from 6, 7 candles red straight in a row to a green, to a red, then a green, a red. And you start seeing that the sellers lost, so the buyers are starting to step in and take control that whole supply demand level. And I actually bought in here. I bought in calls here. I was going off to work. And I bought in calls. I bought I think I bought the 523 calls actually back in here. I'll take a look, but I bought it out here, way out of the money. I did low risk because I wasn't sure how much I was going to be able to manage the position. And it just gradually grew and rebounded. And why I had a feeling this was going to recover in the afternoon, again, it's Friday. Not only was it Friday with expiration day for most of your contracts for your options, but it was the last day of the month. So a lot of people who are red on the month trying to go green, a lot of people trying to salvage their months. They get in, you have a lot more price action going into the close on Friday like this, especially the last day of the month. People trying to save their P&L. And so I knew that there would be a big move after seeing this big price action here. I had a very solid feeling that the afternoon was going to get pretty spicy as well. And I actually missed quite a few different trades going into the close. I didn't expect this at the close. This was just pure insanity going into the close here. Let me switch back over to this one. And so we start seeing, you see the volume candles on the bottom here, how the volume started to gradually increase. And then that close, going into my normal closing strategy, I had actually took my profits from that earlier trade because I had sized up a little bit, but I was in pretty good money when I exited. I had bought in, averaged 7 cents because the contracts got beat up on this down here, but I got into the 523 calls, and you see it down here is like 518, 519. So it was pretty far out of the money, especially going into the close. When you look at your Greeks and stuff, Theta was already starting to chew things up. But I took very small risk. I did 5 contracts at 7 cents each. That's $35 I'm risking, for a chance to, knowing that I wasn't going to take a whole lot of movement to at least double my money. And when this move here started going green, I knew it was a pretty good, opportunity. Even though I was working, I didn't have to manage it a whole lot. Going into the final hour or so, I knew if I got busy with work, I could have just set my stops and exited. And when it hit that it was like 120 mark, is when I exited. Not sure how that last half hour was going to go, if it was really going to go green or red, because you saw it was really choppy, small candles and everything right in here before you start getting the big green candles. And of course, right after I exited, you see right after here, it says 15:30, but it was 1:30 my time from this chart. It blew up right after my exit, but I still ended up exiting for 24 cents or $24 per contract instead of $7 a contract. So I actually had a pretty solid win. And when all of this kicked in here, the last few minutes of the close, let's go in here. See how insane this was. I was actually working. I was working and trying to get into this. We saw right here that this is 130 right here. When the price action really started to rocket up. I exited. When am I exited? Oh, I exited here. This red candle here is where I exited. Between this green and this red is where I exited here. And I tried to reposition going into my closing strategy, but I couldn't do it. Between work and everything, I just couldn't do it. And you see this final candle, the last 5 minutes was almost 3.5 million transactions done in the last 5 minutes of the day. That's absolute insanity. And trying to get in with my closing strategy, I literally couldn't get into the last 5 minutes of trading between losing phone signal and work and trying to manage everything. And so I still managed a small win. I'm going to the closing, but nowhere near the big price action that happened here. My my 523 calls that I exited here for the $24 a contract. We look at here 522.24 just from the bottom of the candle here, or even if you go by the bottom of the wick, 522. And this was at 1:30, so a half hour before the close. And you go to look at how insane this ended up at the close here. It. Let's see. I guess. So right at 2. So this is 2. So okay. 527.80. So almost $6 in the last 30 minutes of the market. $6. Those calls, my 523 calls, actually closed at $4.49. So $449 per contract if I wouldn't have exited at the 130 mark. But again, you have to think about your own schedule, time framing with work and everything. You have to take what you can manage. Knowing that I wasn't going to be able to manage a position like that, and I was already up roughly 300% on that trade. Yeah, I took it all day long. My last trade that I had, I got in right in here, and I did the 528. Did I do 5? No, I think I did 527. I think I was right at the money, and I got out somewhere. I want to say I got out somewhere right in here for the full top wick. But I still managed to make like 40% on that trade still. Again, solid trading day. All across the market, you still see, even with that crazy price action, you can see a lot of the big stocks still ended up red on the day. They were close to being flat, but you had a lot of them still ended up red. Even, Bitcoin did barely turn green. Some of your healthcare stuff, they turned green, but you still had a lot of your big tech. They were red. Tesla was red. Amazon was red. Apple barely broke green. Even the Qs still ended up red with that price action at the end of the day. They started up a little bit. They had more of a dip, which was part of my thought process of which to trade, either SPYs or the Qs. Just because I knew that with tech, if tech failed, that there would be more substantial movement on the Qs, because Qs are more heavily influenced by tech than SPY. They're both influenced heavily, but Qs, is like 50% of what Qs are made up of are based off of the tech sector. So yeah, just in review, we saw that, following the price action. And that's all it was, just following price action, market awareness. I kept an eye on like NVIDIA and things like that. If we go and look at NVIDIA, you saw it, it was choppy. It pulled back, tried to bounce, pulled back, tried to bounce, chopped, even into the close. It kind of filled into the close. It really couldn't get above that 1100 mark. And then they had their stock split, in about a week. It'll be a week from tomorrow, which is Monday. On the 10th, they have their stock split. It's going to be a 10-1. So there's a good chance that this could chop going into that stock split, going into next week. Thought process for going into next week as well. 533 is all-time highs. I have a feeling it could touch that. Actually, Monday or Tuesday could come close to that, and then it may pull back again. In about a week and a half, we have FOMC. They announce the progress with the inflation and all that stuff, and interest rates and all that. So that's going to be a pretty spicy event as well. My prediction for at least tomorrow, I think it could be another, similar red to green. Week open red to green. It could dip red, could have a lot of people selling off, and it could spike green. We actually may have a little bit of a trend green day, but we'll see how things go in the morning. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Good luck to all you guys.